I was sitting at my desk reviewing code for my latest project when my phone buzzed with a message from Aunt Carol. The attachment showed a video file, which I assumed was another family gathering update. I clicked play, expecting to see my nephew's soccer game or maybe my niece's dance recital. Instead, I heard my mother's voice crystal clear. Abigail is such a pathetic failure, living alone at 32, with no husband, no kids. The words hit me like a physical blow as I realized this was a family meeting I had not been invited to, and they were discussing my life with pure cruelty. Before I tell you how I made them realize just how much this pathetic failure was worth to them, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and smash that like button if you have ever been the family member who gives everything but gets no respect. What I did next will make you cheer, I promise. Let me give you the background that makes this betrayal so much deeper. I am Abigail, 32 years old, and I work as a senior software engineer at one of the biggest tech companies in the country. My annual salary is $120,000, and I live in a beautiful one-bedroom apartment downtown. I chose to stay single because I wanted to focus on building my career and enjoying my independence. While my friends were dealing with relationship drama, I was climbing the corporate ladder and loving every minute of it. But my family situation has been complicated for years. My mother, Patricia, is 58 and has been struggling financially ever since her divorce 10 years ago. She never managed to find stable employment after the split, jumping from one part-time job to another. My older brother, Kevin, is 35, married to Sarah, and they have one kid together. Despite being older than me, Kevin has never held down a full-time job for more than a year, always finding excuses about the economy or bad bosses. My sister Diana is 30, married to an unemployed man, and they have 3 children under 10 years old. The family struggles have been constant background noise for as long as I can remember. 5 years ago, everything changed when Mom called me in tears. She had been laid off from her retail job and was facing foreclosure on the family house. The mortgage payment was $1,800 a month, and she had no way to cover it. Without thinking twice, I stepped in and started paying her mortgage directly to the bank. It seemed like the right thing to do. Family is family, right? But what started as temporary help became a permanent arrangement that kept expanding. Mom needed help with utilities, so I added another $400 a month. Then Kevin's car broke down, and he needed help with payments for a replacement vehicle. That was another $350 monthly. Diana's kids needed school supplies and medical care that their insurance would not cover, so I started sending her $900 each month for groceries and expenses. Within 2 years, I was sending out $4,500 every single month to support my family. That is more than $54,000 a year of my after-tax income. I was covering Mom's mortgage, utilities, phone bill, and car insurance, which totaled $2,400 monthly. Kevin received $1,200 for his car payment, credit card minimums, and daycare costs for his son. Diana got $900 for groceries, kids' activities, and medical copays. On top of that, I maintained an emergency fund because there was always something unexpected. A broken appliance, a medical emergency, car repairs. I never said no when they called for help. The pattern that developed was exhausting, but became my normal. Every month I would transfer the money without being asked. Every few weeks someone would call with a crisis that needed immediate financial attention. I canceled vacations to help with Kevin's divorce lawyer fees. I delayed buying a new car because Diana's kids needed dental work. I put off maxing out my retirement contributions because Mom's house needed a new roof. What hurt the most was how they treated these contributions. Nobody ever thanked me. The money was expected like a paycheck they were entitled to receive. When I was busy with work projects and could not attend family gatherings, I would get guilt trips about not caring enough about the family. But here is the thing that should have been a red flag. I was rarely invited to family gatherings anyway. I would hear about birthday parties, holiday dinners, and casual get-togethers through social media posts after they had already happened. The few times I was included felt transactional. They would invite me to dinner and then spend the evening complaining about money problems or hinting about upcoming expenses. I started to feel like an ATM with legs someone they tolerated because they needed my financial support. But I kept telling myself this was temporary, that they would get back on their feet and we would have a normal family relationship again. When I clicked on that video from Aunt Carol, I was expecting something innocent, maybe footage from a family barbecue or updates about the grandkids. Instead, I found myself watching a family dinner at Mom's house, the same house I had been paying the mortgage on for 5 years. The setting was familiar, the dining room table where we used to have holiday meals when I was younger. But this time I was not there, and they were discussing me like I was a lab specimen. The participants included my mother Patricia, my brother Kevin, my sister Diana, Aunt Carol herself, and Kevin's wife Sarah. They were having dessert, and the conversation was flowing freely, with no idea they were being recorded. Aunt Carol must have been testing her new phone's video feature and accidentally hit record. I listened in growing horror as my mother's voice continued. 32 and still single. What kind of woman cannot keep a man? There must be something seriously wrong with her. Kevin chimed in with his own observations. She thinks she is so successful with that computer job, but look how empty her life is. No husband, no children, just work, and that sterile apartment. Diana added her voice to the chorus. At least we have real families and real relationships. She just has her laptop and her bank account. But it was Sarah, Kevin's wife, who delivered the cruelest blow. Maybe if she were not so weird and controlling about everything, someone would actually love her. She acts like she is better than everyone else just because she has money. And then Aunt Carol, the woman who had accidentally sent me this devastating video, said the words that cut deepest. She should be grateful we even include her in family events. We are doing her a favor by letting her be part of this family. As the conversation continued, I discovered they were not just mocking my personal life. They were discussing my financial contributions with shocking entitlement. Kevin suggested asking me for more money. She has plenty living alone in that fancy apartment. We should ask her to help with Tommy's summer camp fees. Diana complained that I was not generous enough with Christmas gifts. She gave the kids $50 each last year. That is nothing for someone who makes what she makes. The most devastating part came when my mother said, she acts like paying for this house is such a big deal. We raised her, fed her, clothed her for 18 years. This is the least she can do to pay us back. If anything, she still owes us for all those years of support. I sat in my apartment, watching this 30-minute video of my family tearing apart my character and discussing my financial obligations like I was their personal trust fund. The betrayal was complete and devastating. These were the people I had sacrificed for the people I had supported through every crisis, and this was how they talked about me when they thought I could not hear. The emotional impact hit me in waves. First came the shock of hearing such cruelty from people I loved. Then came the pain of realizing how they really saw me not as a generous family member, but as a weird, unsuccessful woman whose only value was her paycheck. Finally came the anger as I calculated the numbers in my head. Over 5 years, I had given them approximately $270,000 of my own money. Within minutes of watching the video, My phone started buzzing with frantic messages from Aunt Carol. OMG, honey, please ignore that video. Wrong recipient. Another message followed quickly. It was just family venting. We did not mean any of it. You know how people talk when they are stressed. Then came the phone calls, which I let go to voicemail. In her panicked voice, Carol begged me to delete the video and forget what I had heard. But the damage was done, and my mind was racing with new realizations. I pulled up my bank statements and started calculating exactly how much I had spent supporting people who saw me as a pathetic failure. $270,000. I had depleted my vacation fund, delayed my retirement contributions, and sacrificed my own financial goals to support people who mocked me behind closed doors. I checked my family's social media accounts and found evidence of gatherings I had never been invited to, photos of happy family moments that I was systematically excluded from. While I was working overtime to pay their bills, they were building relationships and making memories without me. The only time my phone rang was when someone needed money. The next 2 weeks were crucial for my planning. I did not respond to Aunt Carol's increasingly desperate messages. I did not return her phone calls or acknowledge her attempts to control the damage. Instead, I quietly began gathering documentation of every financial transaction I had made on behalf of my family over the past 5 years. I printed bank statements, organized receipts, and created a detailed spreadsheet that showed exactly where every penny had gone. The mortgage payments to Wells Fargo for Mom's house, $108,000 over 5 years. Utility payments for electricity, water, and gas, $24,000. Kevin's car payments and credit card minimums, $72,000. Diana's monthly allowances for groceries and kids' expenses, $54,000. Emergency payments for everything from medical bills to appliance repairs, another $12,000. I also consulted with a lawyer to understand my legal obligations. The answer was clear. I had no legal responsibility to continue supporting any of them. Every payment had been voluntary, and I could stop at any time without legal consequences. This knowledge gave me the confidence to proceed with my plan. October 1st arrived, and for the first time in 5 years, I did not transfer the monthly mortgage payment. I simply let the date pass without sending the $1,800 that Mom had been expecting. I did not call to explain or give advance notice. I just stopped. On October 3rd, my phone rang with Mom's panicked voice. Abigail, the bank called about a missed mortgage payment. Did you forget to send it this month? Her tone was annoyed, rather than worried, like I had simply made a clerical error that needed to be corrected immediately. I am reviewing my financial commitments this month. I replied calmly. I will get back to you soon. Reviewing your commitments. What does that mean? You know the payment is due on the 1st. I understand when it is due, Mom. I am just taking some time to evaluate my budget and priorities. She hung up, clearly frustrated, but not yet understanding the seriousness of the situation. I could tell she assumed this was a temporary glitch that would be resolved quickly. 2 weeks later, I let the electricity bill go unpaid as well. This time, Kevin called in a panic. Did you forget about Mom's electric bill? She got a disconnect notice, and she is freaking out. I have not forgotten anything, I told him. I am just prioritizing my expenses differently right now. What do you mean, prioritizing differently? This is Mom's electricity we are talking about. I understand what it is, Kevin. I am just making some changes to my financial arrangements. By this point, family conference calls were happening daily. I could picture them gathered around Mom's kitchen table, trying to figure out what was wrong with their reliable ATM. They were not worried about me personally. They were worried about their money source. Finally, after 3 weeks of missed payments and growing panic, I received the call I had been expecting. Mom's voice was strained but trying to sound casual. "Abigail, we are having a family dinner this Sunday. We would love for you to join us. We have not seen you in so long." It was the first dinner invitation I had received in months, and I knew exactly what it meant. They were ready to have the conversation they should have had years ago. Sunday evening, I drove to Mom's house and parked in the driveway that I had been paying to maintain. I walked up to the front door of the house, whose mortgage I had been covering, and knocked like a visitor. When Mom opened the door, her smile was forced and nervous. The same dining room where the video had been recorded was now set for a family meeting disguised as a dinner. Kevin and Sarah were there with their son. Diana had come without her kids. Aunt Carol sat in the corner, looking like she wanted to disappear. Everyone was trying to act normal, but the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. After some awkward small talk over the meal, I had indirectly paid for Mom finally brought up the real reason for the invitation. "Abigail, we need to talk about these missed payments. We do not understand what is going on, but we need to get this resolved quickly." I set down my fork and looked around the table at each face. "You want to know what is going on? Let me show you." I pulled out my phone and placed it in the center of the table. 3 weeks ago, Aunt Carol accidentally sent me something very interesting. I pressed play on the video. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Aunt Carol started crying, her face buried in her hands. Kevin and Diana went completely pale, realizing their cruel words were about to be played back to them. Mom tried to grab the phone, but I held it firmly. As their recorded voices filled the room with insults about my pathetic failure of a life the current versions of themselves sat in mortified silence. When the video reached the part about me being grateful for their inclusion in the family, I paused it. "This is what you really think of me," I said quietly. "The pathetic failure who has been paying for your lives for 5 years." I pulled out the spreadsheet I had prepared and began reading the numbers aloud. "Mom, I have paid $132,000 toward your housing and living expenses. Kevin, you have received $72,000 for your various financial emergencies. Diana, $54,000 for your children and household needs. Aunt Carol, while you were not a direct recipient, you certainly enjoyed the family gatherings that my money made possible." The room was dead silent, except for the sound of Aunt Carol's quiet sobbing. For 5 years, this pathetic failure has sacrificed her own financial goals, canceled her own plans, and put her own life on hold to support people who see her as nothing more than a bank account with trust issues. Kevin tried to interrupt. "Abigail, we were just venting. You know we love you." "Love," I laughed bitterly. "You love my money. You love having a sister who asks no questions and expects no gratitude. But you do not love me, because if you did, you would never have said those things, whether you thought I would hear them or not." I stood up from the table and delivered my final statement. "Effective immediately, I am retiring from my position as your personal bank. You want to know what a real failure looks like. It is being so ungrateful and entitled that you insult the person who has been carrying your entire family." I walked out of that house, got in my car, and drove home. Within an hour, I had blocked all their phone numbers temporarily. I needed space to think without the pressure of their panic and desperation. The consequences of my decision came swiftly and dramatically. Within 3 days of that dinner, the bank called Mom about the overdue mortgage payment. The utility company issued a final disconnect notice for the electricity. Kevin's car payment was due the following Monday, and without my support, he could not make it. By the end of the first week, Kevin's car had been repossessed. He was forced to take public transportation to his part-time job, which made his schedule nearly impossible to maintain. Diana had to pull her children out of their after-school activities because she could no longer afford the fees. Mom was scrambling to figure out how to make a mortgage payment that she had not worried about for 5 years. My family tried everything to reach me. They showed up at my apartment building, but the security desk turned them away when I instructed the staff not to allow them up. They sent emails that grew increasingly desperate as the financial reality set in. Extended family members called, trying to mediate, but I calmly explained the situation to each of them, and most were horrified by what they learned. The first extended family member to call was my cousin, Mark Aunt Carol's son. "Abigail, I had no idea they were treating you like that. Mom told me about the video, and I am disgusted. She is embarrassed and ashamed, but she knows she was wrong." One by one, other relatives learned the truth about the family dynamics. They discovered that I had been excluded from gatherings while financing them. They learned about the years of financial support that went unacknowledged and unappreciated. The family opinion began to shift as people realized how badly I had been treated. My cousin Jennifer called to apologize. "I always wondered why you never came to family events. I thought you were just too busy with work. I had no idea they were not inviting you while you were paying for everything." After a month of complete financial independence, the true scope of my family's dependency became clear. Mom was forced to put the house on the market because she could not afford the mortgage payments. Kevin had to swallow his pride and take a full-time job for the first time in years. Diana applied for government assistance programs to help feed her children. The most satisfying part was watching them realize exactly how much I had been covering. When Kevin had to take over his own car payment, he was shocked by the monthly amount. When Diana had to budget for her own groceries, she realized how expensive it was to feed 3 children. When Mom had to pay her own utility bills, she discovered how much electricity and gas actually cost. 3 months after I stopped all financial support, I received a handwritten letter from my mother. Her handwriting was shaky, and the tone was completely different from any communication I had received from her in years. "Dear Abigail," the letter began, "I have spent 3 months thinking about what happened, and I need to apologize for everything. I realize now that we took advantage of your generosity and treated you terribly. We were wrong to exclude you from family gatherings while expecting you to pay for our lives. We were wrong to criticize you behind your back when you were sacrificing so much for our benefit. Most of all, I was wrong as your mother to allow this treatment to continue." Similar apologies came from Kevin and Diana, each acknowledging their mistakes and begging for forgiveness. Kevin admitted that having to support his family himself had made him realize how much pressure he had been putting on me. Diana wrote that applying for assistance had been humbling and had made her grateful for all the years I had prevented her from needing it. But I was not ready for reconciliation yet. The healing process for me was just beginning. I started seeing a therapist to process the years of financial and emotional manipulation I had endured. Dr. Sarah Martinez helped me understand that I had been enabling their dependence while sacrificing my own well-being. "You taught them that they could treat you badly and still receive your support," she explained. "By continuing to pay their bills regardless of how they treated you, you reinforced the idea that your feelings did not matter." I began to understand the patterns that had developed over the years. I had always been the family problem solver, the one who made sacrifices so others could be comfortable. I had confused being helpful with being used, and I had allowed my self-worth to become tied to my utility to others. 6 months after the video incident, I was rebuilding my life on my own terms. I took the vacation to Europe that I had been postponing for years. I bought the luxury car I had always wanted, but had delayed purchasing to maintain my family's emergency fund. I started maxing out my retirement contributions again and investing in my own future. Most importantly, I began dating again. For years, I had avoided serious relationships because my family obligations took up so much of my time and emotional energy. Now I met someone who appreciated my independence and success rather than seeing them as character flaws. When my family reached out again after 6 months, I was ready to establish new boundaries. I agreed to limited contact with specific conditions. There would never be any financial support again, regardless of the emergency. Any relationship we rebuilt would be based on mutual respect and genuine affection, not financial dependency. I would attend family gatherings only if I was genuinely wanted as a person, not needed as a provider. The new dynamics were difficult for everyone to navigate at first. Mom had to learn to manage her own finances and make decisions based on her actual income. Kevin discovered that having a full-time job and supporting his family himself actually made him feel more confident and capable. Diana found that learning to live within her means taught her children valuable lessons about money and priorities. 1 year after the video incident, I attended my first family gathering in 18 months. It was Kevin's birthday, and he had specifically asked me to come, not because he needed anything, but because he wanted me there. The difference in atmosphere was remarkable. Conversations focused on our lives, relationships, and interests rather than money problems and financial requests. I realized that my family had grown stronger through adversity. They had learned self-reliance and developed problem-solving skills they had never needed while I was supporting them. Kevin's marriage had improved because he was now contributing equally to his household. Diana had gone back to school to get job training while her children were in school. Mom had found part-time work that gave her both income and purpose. The most important lesson I learned was about the difference between love and manipulation. Real love requires mutual respect and consideration. When people only value you for what you can provide rather than who you are, that is not love, it is exploitation. 18 months after accidentally receiving that devastating video, I can honestly say it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to confront a toxic dynamic that I had been enabling for years. It taught me to value myself and set boundaries that protected my well-being. My relationship with my family will never be the same, but it is healthier now. We interact as equals rather than as provider and dependents. When we spend time together, it is because we genuinely enjoy each other's company, not because someone needs something. The financial independence I reclaimed allowed me to build the life I had always wanted. I am in a loving relationship with someone who sees my success as an asset rather than a threat. I have a thriving career that I can focus on without constant family distractions. Most importantly, I have learned that my worth is not determined by how much I can sacrifice for others who do not appreciate it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret cutting off financial support so abruptly. The answer is absolutely not. Being called a failure by people you have been carrying is not an insult, it is information. It tells you exactly how much they value your sacrifice and exactly how little they respect your contribution to their lives. The greatest gift you can give someone is teaching them self-reliance, even when they resist learning that lesson. That video was not just them talking about me. It was them revealing who they really were when they thought no consequences would follow. And sometimes being called a failure by people who have failed to appreciate you is actually the greatest compliment of all. Have you ever been taken advantage of by family members who saw you as an ATM rather than a person? What would you have done if you discovered your family talking about you the way mine did? Share your thoughts in the comments below and hit that like button if this story reminded you that your worth is not measured by what you can provide to others. Subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries with toxic family members and learning to value yourself appropriately. Please share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they deserve respect from their family, not just financial obligation. Remember, you teach people how to treat you by what you are willing to accept, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling their worst behaviors. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you the courage to value yourself as much as you value others.